Okay, so welcome to everyone to HR Lancers Live. I am Chris Russell. I'm the founder of HR Lancers, and glad you could all join us today on our latest community hangout. I typically like to have these at least once a month or so, and bring on guests who are themselves have been freelancing at one point and on their own now, and teaching us things overall. So it's kind of meant to be a informal forum to hang out, get to know each other, and network as well. So if you are new to HR Lancers, we are a platform for freelance HR pros, independent recruiters, place to find remote roles, projects, contract gigs, that kind of thing. Think of us as the Upwork for HR. It's kind of the goal here. Help you find projects and gigs, jobs out there in the space, and help you build your own careers as you go out and work for yourself. So for those of you on the call live, feel free to add your LinkedIn URLs in the chat so we can all connect with each other. And let's do a quick roll call. I'd like to see who's here. I see some new faces on the list. So curious to hear from you all. Just a quick who you are, where you're from, and what you do. So Martha, let's start with you.
I'm Martha Damrow. I'm based in Chicago, where it's only about 85, so it's kind of a cool spell. I've been a recruiter for a little over 20 years and good experience in IT, engineering, manufacturing, finance, fintech, and some medical device. And I am obviously got COVIDed out at the 1st of April. And I'm looking for either a full-time job, a contract, or a client who wants to pay contingent. So,
Any what's it like out there right now? Are you applying? Give me a quick sense of what's happening.
it's really, nobody calls you back. It's very, very difficult. There's just, nobody needs a recruiter because there's so many people out of work. So
Yeah, gotcha. Well, good luck to you, and keep us up to date. All right, let's see here. Meghan Harr, who are you and where do you come from?
Hi, yeah. I am located in southeastern Virginia, and I worked in the higher education space for the last 10 years as a coordinator, doing a wide range of HR functions for the last 10 years. And along with some event planning on the side.
Awesome. All right. Well, nice to have you.
I left my job right before COVID hit, actually, so I'm also job searching.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see here. Monique, who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Hylton, and I am calling from South Florida. I have over 15 years of HR experience. It's a pretty broad background, but a lot of, I would say, HR manager, HR consultant type roles, some compensation, probably more so in the project management space and talent management, etc. And yeah, I was working in financial services for about, well, off and on for a number of years, but my last role, I was there for about 5 years before they had position eliminations, and that was towards the end of 2019. So I am looking for contract and full-time opportunities.
Gotcha. Well, good luck, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Dr. Joy, great name. Who are you, and what do you do?
Hello, everyone. I am in North Carolina. It's 95 here. Anyway,
Winter so far.
Yeah.
I am in education, actually, but I do have an HR background, and I've developed a few HR courses, and I have a consulting company. So I work with startups with their startup and development, and a part of that process would be to help them hire. So that's
Awesome.
me.
Great to have you. Let's see here. Anca, is that how you say your name?
Exactly. I'm Anca. I'm calling from New York City. I also have a pretty broad background in compensation, recruitment, talent analytics, employer branding. Currently searching for a job in the US because I moved last year from Romania, from Europe, where I worked for Korn Ferry for the past 4 years.
Okay, excellent. Let's see here. Alyssa Smith, want to tell us who you are?
Hi all, nice to meet you guys. I'm an HR specialist from Clayton, North Carolina. This is my second HR Lancers live event, so I'm excited to be joining you guys again.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. I see Tanya's here, our past returning champion.
That's funny. Hi. Sorry. Okay, I haven't showered in like a week.
COVID.
Let's be real. I'm conserving water. That's what I'm doing. I'm helping the planet. So hi, I'm Tanya. I own a company called Rare Find Search Consultants here in Dallas, Texas. I've had it for about a year and nothing has really taken off yet, mostly for my own fault. I even spoke about this today with one of my friends. It's more like I'm not giving it my all because of the pandemic, and I feel guilty about that. I did make a placement recently. I specialize in manufacturing and engineering. So Martha in Chicago, I completely get you. And I lived in Chicago for a while. And so I am not trying to look for a job right now, although if they don't give us another stimulus check, I might have to be looking for one. But I have it in my head right now that if I do that, I have given up. Not that it's a failure, but I've given up because I haven't even seriously tried. I don't know if you all have or not, but I have a list of places here in Dallas in manufacturing and engineering that I could call, and I'm not doing it because I just don't feel like it. And so I'm trying to get over that hump. And that's a Tanya thing that has nothing to do with anything. So I've been dealing or talking with a lot of my mentors and coaches and friends, and I just need to get out of my slump and pick up the phone and just keep calling and be positive, and I encourage you to do the same.
Awesome. Well, hang in there, Tanya. Things are bound to turn around, I think, overall. So
I think so too.
All right, here we've got a couple more. Just Finisha Bennett, you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Finisha from South Carolina, where it is probably 98 degrees.
Ooh,
okay.
And, in the lead.
Yes, and I am trying to take my son to the dentist, but I'm here listening. I am currently, I left my last employer. I've been in HR for about 18 years. I was working from home and I just refused to go back to an office position. So I'm looking for kind of a contract position where I could still work from home. A 15-year-old.
Gotcha. Well, glad to have you, Finisha. Thanks for joining us. Let's see, Maureen Droste, you want to say hello? And then we'll go Chadwick, and then we'll get on to Katie.
Here I am. Maureen Droste. I'm from Riverdale, New Jersey. It's 91 degrees here, but very humid. I recently lost my job with the toy company due to the COVID, making business decisions for us. And it shut down the end of March. I was able to stay on as a consultant for a little bit longer to help close out all the 401k and payroll. But unfortunately that ended. So I am also seeking a position here in Northern New Jersey, hopefully, and someplace where I don't have to commute into the city, which is, I think a lot of people's dilemma now with the virus going forward.
Yeah. Have you been applying? What's it been like out there?
It's hard. I've been applying, but I'm hesitant to apply directly online to through LinkedIn or through any of the job sites. through any of the portals because I feel like they're getting lost. I feel like I'm just one of many, many people that are out of work. So I've been trying to do a lot of networking, and that's one of the reasons why I jumped on this call today too. Trying to network to get my resume in front of the right people and, you know, make it move forward that way.
Awesome.
It's very
Nice.
tough.
Thanks. Well, thanks for joining us, Maureen.
Thank you.
And, glad to have you. And Chadwick, last but not least, who are you? Where are you from?
Hey, just a kid from Akron, Ohio. First time calling today. I actually just started a new role 3 weeks ago as an HR director for a company here in Twinsburg called SHRM. So I think I got that burning passion in my soul to one day just kick off and do it myself. So
Nice.
kind of here to learn.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you, Chadwick.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get to Katie here. Let me give you a quick intro, Katie, with your bio here. So Katie Augsberger is one of the founding partners of Future Work Design. She had planned to be a school teacher. She found her way into HR and has been working to center the most marginalized identities in her HR practice for the last 15 plus years. Katie has a master's in curriculum and instruction, as well as a BS in sociology. She's certified as a senior professional in human resources. She's a certified professional for SHRM and a certified compensation professional. So today we're going to talk about her career journey and her upcoming book on the future of work. So Katie, welcome to the show.
I think it's really like very flattering when you list out all of that stuff, and I'm like, oh, did I do? Yeah, I guess those are things I did.
No, I've been studying your LinkedIn profile for the last half hour, so I'm going to quiz you on your
yeah, I'm like, yeah.
But yeah, so give us a quick history of your HR background and tell us about what you do today. We'll start there.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak for everyone on this call, but I think for a lot of us in HR, we kind of just like happened into HR, like did not expect that this would be our journey, and here we are. I went to school to be a high school history teacher. I thought that kind of, I'm nerdy, I'm a history buff, so I thought that would be something I'd be really into. And then while I was a receptionist at a manufacturing organization while I was in grad school, I just kind of got interested in employee experience and was like running reports that nobody asked for, and was interested in just kind of like what the organization could do to improve, and kind of fell into HR that way. And over the course of 10 years at that organization, became the head of HR. And then completely decided like I want to do something in a completely different industry, and went to a creative agency from manufacturing and was the head of HR there. And then 3 years ago left, not by choice, because when I'm hearing all these people talking about their COVID layoffs and COVID changes, that was, I mean, certainly not a pandemic, but I was not like Chadwick. I did not like want to do this. I was not interested in being a freelancer. I was not interested in being an entrepreneur. It just kind of happened because there was a layoff and I had to lay myself off. And so then I started my own organization.
Okay. So take me back to that time and you know, what was going through your mind at that point? Did you start looking for another full-time job at that point, or did you kind of say, okay, let me try something on my own? Was it?
Yeah, well, it was full panic. Full panic was. I always feel like the most honest thing I can do for people who are like thinking about this journey is to just be like fully transparent about like how it was for me, which was like I was not excited about it. I was looking for a job. I was trying to figure out, could I freelance in the meantime, because I had just gotten divorced. I was a single mom. I'm a Black woman in an all-white state. Like I was just like, this is all stacking up as not likely that I'm going to be super successful on my own. And so I wanted to find a traditional job, but then I started like recognizing that like what I was uniquely skilled at was something that I couldn't necessarily find in the market, like as far as a role. Like I was really good at like systems, like figuring out these HR systems and like how they were going to help the employees with the most barriers. And like, that wasn't like a specific thing people were asking for in their job postings, but I knew that it was something I was good at. And I kind of had this like aha moment, like one day, like we all do, like in the shower, like as you're like crying and thinking your deep thoughts of like, who do I trust more to take care of me and my family? Do I trust me, or do I trust some business owner that I don't know? And that was kind of the aha I had. It's like, yeah, I actually trust my hustle. I actually trust my skill set. So I think I can do this on my own. And that's kind of how I got there. But I was still scared. I'm still scared. I mean, I've been doing it for 3 years. I'm still scared.
Okay. By the way, do you have any job hunting advice for the crew out there? What's your, like, give me one tip or two that you can give to them today that can help them?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give is that I think, especially in a tough job market, you know, I think many of us, if we've been in the career field long enough, we've weathered really tough moments in the economy. I think the instinct is to just take a job, like whatever job you can take, and that you're really only happiest when it aligns with your values. Like, that's the only way that role works. And it is better to find the right thing than it is to find a thing. And I know that can be really hard right now, but those organizations are out there and they are hiring.
Yep. Take me back to when you got your first client, when you were on your own. Do you have a story around that?
Yeah, actually, I took my first client through someone else. So the first thing I did was to subcontract, and that was actually a really helpful experience for me. Is that somebody else who had like a business and had a model and had a system and knew how to be with clients. I was under their wing, and I did that a lot when I first started. I don't do that now because I have my own client base, but at the beginning, that was something I didn't even know you could do. But I didn't know how to be a consultant. I really knew how to be an HR lady. I had no idea how to be a consultant, which is two very different things. Like, it is a very different skill set to be a consultant than it is to be an internal HR source.
Describe that for me, if you could. What's the difference?
Yeah, like when you are an internal HR resource, I think your role is to always think of the longest term solution, to always make sure that everybody is in alignment, because you have to move that system forward. You're going to be there, and you have to negotiate those relationships really carefully because you are inside the organization. So you just have like you have more politicking that you have to do, and you're looking at things in a much longer span of work. When you're a consultant, you're really being paid to just give people the business. Like, you're paid to like just tell people what's what, and to be declarative, and you're getting paid to come in with some expertise. And it's very okay for you to shake things up and to not be political, and to think of it in project terms. Like, you want your work to outlive the project, but to recognize that you are not going to be there for 5 years. Your goal is to be there in a short term, and like, what impact can you make in that short term? And so having to like renegotiate my brain to think like a consultant and not like an internal HR took some time, and learning from somebody else how to do that and just how to show up in the room was really helpful for me. Nice.
Okay. So getting back to your first client was you subcontracted for another company. How about the first client you got on your own? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember it, and I would do everything differently now. But I did get my first client was an HR retainer, where they just needed somebody to kind of be their HR support, their bat phone to call like when some HR things happened. And I think that is a really great business model for some folks. It was a terrible business model for me, because what I recognize is, again, I'm good at systematic work. I'm good at like project, like I can create a really great compensation system. But these like long-term little engagements where I was just there to answer a question, I didn't have enough context to answer things for people. I didn't have enough information to like really do my best work. And so I was just so eager to sell something and sell something successfully that I did it. And I actually had that client for a long time, and all the way up until COVID, when their business actually ended. But it would probably not be a project I'd take now, because now I have a better sense of like what I am doing in my offering. But at the time, it was just great to have something.
Were they using you too much out of that, or was it just wasn't the right fit for you?
Yeah, it was just so sporadic. So I would have like, there'd be this big hot employee issue and then nothing, and then a big hot system that they were trying to implement and then nothing. And it was what I recognize that's so critical about being an internal expert is that you have the through thread to connect all the dots from one incident to another. But as a consultant in such a small retainer, you don't have that through thread. So you either have to make a bigger retainer so that you can ask more questions, or you have to just recognize that you're not going to have the whole story.
How did you price something like that? I'm curious how you come up with pricing. Did you just a flat monthly fee? And was that pricing, did it turn out to be enough? You know, was it the right price?
Yeah, I priced it as a flat monthly fee. It was, at first, I was not getting paid enough because they were utilizing me more than I did. And I got more confident as time got on to renegotiate price and to like be more clear about like how long things took me. Because what I didn't do, I only billed for the hours that I only projected I'll do 10 hours of work. And so then I billed based on that amount of time, not thinking that there's so much other stuff that happens that I'm not getting paid for that I needed to actually account for in my billing. And so now I've gotten much more sophisticated at like the sales cycle, the project management, all of that stuff is stuff I still have to do, and I still would like to get paid for it.
Yep. So, you know, now that you've been on your own for a while now, like what, 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years?
Yep.
What would you say you learned about working for yourself that you wish you knew beforehand? What comes to mind there?
I think probably there's a few things. One, to take your time to learn how to use QuickBooks. Like that's just a tactical thing. Like you don't learn the systems of how to be an entrepreneur in HR naturally. So like learn the systems of doing business, just like you're learning how to do your practice of being a freelancer. Also to recognize that, and this is like part of how I think of my own worldview, is that so much of what we've been taught about how a consultant looks, how a freelancer looks, is so tied up into our own ideas of patriarchy, white supremacy, like how people should show up. You should show up with a suit and tie, you should be very declarative, you should have all the answers, and like that's not an authentic way to work for me. And so like once I got more clear about what was authentic to me, the better I was as a consultant. And so to like get clear about who you are in this work, it'll help you be a better consultant.
Yep.
So QuickBooks and know yourself.
Right. Fair enough. So you're writing a book.
Yeah. Sorta.
Sorta. Okay. Well, what's
Like
it about?
everything.
What's it about first? And tell me where you are in the process, I guess.
So I think deeply about, like, again, I'm a real history nerd, and how most of how we work and how systems of like what is traditional success were set up to kind of center one type of worker, mostly affluent, male, white, highly educated. And that was kind of who all of our systems were designed around. That's like who we consider a top performer. That's what professionalism looks like when we think about professionalism. I often think of like Don Draper from Mad Men. Like that's kind of who we have centered the design of work for. And that everybody else is just trying to fit into that system, and it was the system that wasn't really built for us. And like, what would work look like if each of us could be our authentic self at work? How would we normalize things like childcare and pregnancy leave and very different types of professionalism? If we allowed ourselves to like think broadly about like what this looks like, then how would work look? And in what ways could we actually change and shift, instead of just leaning into the system, change and shift work to be more for everybody? I use like a little story to kind of help people understand like why this book became helpful, if you have a moment.
Yeah, sure.
So I went on a building tour with a company that I worked at before I started freelancing. And we looked at all of these gorgeous, like, you know, modern buildings that were like redone. And we looked at this one building that was built in the 1910s in Portland, and it had been converted to like this ultra modern, artsy, creative space. And when I went into the bathrooms, as I like went into a leave and went to the bathrooms, there was these urinals in the women's restroom. So I was like, oh, did I go into the wrong bathroom? Or like, what's the deal here? Is this like a way to be trans inclusive? Like what is happening in this bathroom? So I asked the builder, and the builder said, oh no, actually in this building, all the women's restrooms were on the 12th floor and all the other restrooms were for men, which like baffled my mind. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, didn't women need to go to the bathroom in 1910? But what he had said was that actually when the building was built, that all the women worked on the 12th floor. That was the secretary's floor, and all the other floors were for men. And it occurred to me in that moment that like, that's the physical systems of work that were just built for men, and women were kind of just like, we're supposed to fit in there. But there's a whole bunch of implicit systems in work. How we talk about compensation, how we talk about meetings, like who gets invited, who doesn't get invited, that were built for men, but not for women. And like, how do we actually make those shifts and change that so that women and people of color, trans folks, all folks feel inside of the organization? So the writing process is going slow because work is busy, which is good, but it is going.
Yeah. Is it called The Future of Work? Is that what it's called?
I haven't settled on the title. It changes all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, but I think it's about the future of work.
So we talk about like next year it's going to be out, or?
I think next year, which feels bonkers. I thought I would have all the time in the world once COVID hit, and that just hasn't yet been the case.
Yeah. A lot of freelancers took a hit over COVID. Did it affect you at all?
It did in a temporary sense, is that like once COVID hit, a lot of my client work got pushed or prolonged or slimmed down. But because of the type of work I do, actually following George Floyd's murder, my work is probably as busy as it's ever been, because so much of my work is helping organizations rethink their policies and practices, and really like explicitly centering Black and Brown folks in the center of the design. And so as organizations were pushing to get public statements out, a lot of Black and Brown employees were like, actually, your internal practices look nothing like your external statement. So we need to do some work. And so my work has been pretty busy since then.
Gotcha. Give me an example of something you've been doing around that. I'm curious how you help companies shape that message and change.
Yeah, so my work often looks like first coming into an organization and doing listening sessions. I first have listening sessions with Black employees, then all people of color, and then all staff, to see like what is happening inside the organization that you need help with, what support do you need, where do you need interventions, and then creating systems. And funny enough, a lot of the systems aren't so radical. It's like, I need to understand what the process is for this work. I need to understand what my career path is. I need to understand where I can find benefits information. Like these little barriers we don't often think about as systematic oppression, But when you recognize that some folks may have, because of their own identities, more access to information than others, like being really explicitly clear on like what the career path is really, really important. And so like that is what my work often looks like now, is like first listening sessions and then creating the recommendations and those processes around what employees are saying they need.
Gotcha. Yeah, diversity and inclusion has just exploded in the last, several weeks because of a lot of bad news. But I have an ebook I wrote last year around just a bunch of different diversity and inclusion tools out there you can use. It's probably my number one most downloaded book right now on RegTech Media, and it's what are some things companies are doing wrong today around this? I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff we can talk about here. But
yeah.
What are one or two things they can do, tomorrow to start, talking about it at least, or just, starting to improve the overall D&I at their companies? Because I think a lot of them are afraid to talk about it, and a lot of them are just bad at it overall. So.
Yeah, I think two things are really important. One is to listen to what people need. I so often go into organizations where they just put out a statement, or they just started a committee, but they didn't actually ask Black and brown folks, like, what would be helpful to you? And I'm always kind of baffled about how simple that is and how easy of a step it is to miss. Just like, what do you need and how can I help you? The second thing is the lack of investing time and money to this. So often with any strategy, organizations are like, yep, we need to invest this money, we need to invest this time, we need to put it on calendars, we need to put a stake in the ground of like why this is important. But with equity, this is like the one area where we expect it to be free. We expect the labor to be done by Black and brown folks. We expect it to be kind of a just nice thing to do. And until we start looking at equity with the same rigor as we look at the rest of organizational strategy, we will not actually move the needle on it. So it's like we have to add rigor to it. We have to have budget. We have to hold people accountable. It needs to be on people's performance reviews. Like it has to be mechanized into the system of the organization for it actually to move the needle.
Yeah, and measured, right? Gotcha. Okay. So one of your job titles was senior manager of employee experience for X-Plane for 3 years. So define employee experience for me, and then tell me some things you did to improve the employee experience at that company.
Yeah, so I kind of think of employee experience as like almost a more ambitious way of thinking of HR. So HR is like the policies and practices of our work. Employee experiences is taking that like a level deeper and thinking of it as like, if we center the employee in the design of this, like what is our policies and practices? Like how do we center their needs and the needs of the organization? Instead of thinking of us as HR as necessarily an arm of the organization, I think of it as an arm of the employees and what they need. So an example of what that looked like is recognizing that our staff was 50% female and mothers, and that we had no systems for working moms in our organization. So the system was just not built for these moms who were holding leadership positions, but also were either single moms, small children, nursing mothers, and to like actually like center them and their needs in the design of their employee experience. And so we started buffering out and making longer maternity leaves. We actually increased our PTO to be an unlimited PTO plan. We had very flexible stop and start times. We allowed for really flexible work from home plans. And so to like recognize that like if we centered their needs, like what was the employee experience going to look like for everybody? And so that was like one of the things that I did there.
Gotcha. How about things like onboarding? Do you offer?
Yeah. So I did all the traditional HR things, like creating onboarding systems, recruiting. Luckily though, like it was a really small organization, so I was able to like test things that would seem very radical at a big organization, but for them, I was like, we're gonna try this for 6 months and see if it works. We're gonna have an innovation day. We're gonna stop all work and do an innovation day for a full day and see if it works. And so that experimental nature allowed for like really cool onboarding programs and really cool PTO programs because it was small enough to try.
Yep. How about technology-wise? Did you bring in any kind of technology to improve the onboarding experience? I mean, feel free to mention some different platforms out there, or.
Yeah, I'm the worst. So I would do everything by a spreadsheet and a piece of paper if I could. So like, I wish I was really great at technology and had great advice to impart, but I don't, because I'm just, this is just not my forte.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I mean, the employee experience, I think it was getting a lot of traction before COVID. Now it's probably even, more on the minds of employees, especially because they're all, forced to work at home or change how they work. But it's interesting how that concept has kind of taken hold in the last couple of years overall. How do you think COVID's affecting all this, Katie? I mean, is it positive? Is it negative? Obviously, remote work is much more of a embedded fact of life these days, and it's probably going to be for the foreseeable future. But what do you think is coming out of this COVID crisis that is changing the way we work today, and how that affects HR as well?
Yeah, I mean, I see some really great positive things, and I see a lot of really stark negative things that we have to address systematically as a country. The positive is like, yes, companies who have been kind of thinking for years, like, could we possibly have people work from home, are like immediately like, oh, I guess we can figure that out really fast. I also think like the other great thing about this is that we are starting to talk about mental health in a lot more businesses. I think businesses are forced to have conversations about mental health because so many people's mental health was impacted by COVID that not addressing it inside organizations like became like a glaring miss. And so a lot of organizations are starting to have real deep conversations and offer resources for mental health. The thing I find really concerning for freelancers, for people in this profession, for people who are concerned about how work looks like, is the deep inequities that are happening for people who can work from home and organizations that can't work from home, or people who cannot work from home. And like, how are we extending that same caretaking ability for those who are working from home, for those who are not? How do we extend things like childcare and breaks? Like, so many people are just working all the time because the workday doesn't really end anymore. Because like your kids and your work are all happening in the same place all the time, and so there's not the same caretaking for the employee experience, whether that's at home or inside a workplace where people traditionally have to work. And so for people to like really start to get curious about like, what do we really value, and how do we value and recognize people's humanities through crisis at work?
Yeah. I keep seeing the word empathy being thrown around a lot, but saying that empathy is sort of the new, directive for management and for your employer brand, right? If you actually care about your employees, that's probably the best thing you can do right now.
Yeah. And I feel for employers because this is not a one company solve. This is not a one consultant solve. This is not one employee solve. This is a large, systematic, national conversation about like, how do we value people? Like if you're an organization that serves food to the community, if you're a restaurant and there is no national or regional sick leave policy, and you do not have the means during COVID to offer sick leave, then you have employees coming in sick. So this is not the problem of the business owner. This is the problem of a national conversation. And so like recognizing that we work in a system that is bigger than us, and we need to push that system to create opportunities so that businesses can successfully take care of their employees.
Yeah.
And that we should prioritize that just as much as we prioritize profit.
Yeah, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Chipotle. They came out with a sick policy where maybe you had to get a doctor's note or something and actually bring it in. Did you see something like that?
Yeah, and it's like,
there?
well, okay, that helps if you can go to the doctor. That helps
Right.
if you can get a COVID test. And so it's really recognizing like the first layer is we have to have national conversations. Then we need to work on, and so there's a lot of organizations that are pushing further than the government can push, but that's really hard for small businesses to do, and to recognize that like it can be very difficult and a real pinch point if we don't have the systems to help support business.
Yeah. I would imagine as a consultant, you'd have a field day, like going into like an Amazon warehouse maybe, and trying to address all the complaints from the workers there.
Yeah.
Is that your dream client?
You know, actually it's funny. My dream client is usually the people who I find to be the more problematic employers. So for example, Amazon's a good example. Walmart's a good example. Organizations who have had real rubs with their employees, with unions, with labor rights folks, because that's the opportunity, because they're such large employers, those are the opportunities to impact most people's lives. And my interest and heart is in like people who are in blue collar space, because so much of my life personally and professionally has been in that space. So like where we can make the most change, like consultants are often brought in for white collar workplaces to help people who are already kind of at the highest echelons of privilege have more privilege.
Yeah.
And really, if we can like break into organizations that like are retail frontline workers and like create their employee experience, like that to me is like the most exciting client.
Cool. Well, Katie, we certainly appreciate the info today. Audience, do you have any questions for Katie? Here's your chance. Feel free to speak up.
About these systems that you say that we need to implement, do you see any guidance coming from the federal government, or is this going to be mostly on a state level?
I think right now on the state level, there was some really exciting traction happening about 4 years ago on like what labor laws could look like in the United States, and some real movement towards that. But we've seen a real stall in the last 3 to 4 years about like what is possible on a national level. But so many states are moving towards creating paid family leave, to creating sick time. This is happening in local municipalities and in states, that it is moving us to a national conversation. I kind of think of it like legalizing marijuana, which I know this is like a bit of a stretch.
For the love of God, faster than that for these people.
It's taking, like on a national level, it may be another decade before we get there. I think that would be a whole bunch, but like, way too long. But like on a local level, states across the country are like, this is not the battle. This is not the hill we want to fight on. So like, let's go ahead and legalize this. And I think that that's happening in a lot of the workplaces. Like, we know this isn't going to happen nationally, so we're going to go ahead and make paid leave a thing. And so we're seeing it on both coasts. We're seeing it in some southern states, that like this is an actual movement that's getting traction. So I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon on a federal level, but I remain hopeful. I like to keep hope alive.
Katie, any thoughts on the California AB5 law with the freelance stuff?
No, but tell me, do you have thoughts?
Oh, well, did you hear about the how they're classifying Uber drivers as full-time employees versus?
Fantastic.
Did You like that? You're
Yeah, well, I mean, I like in theory. Like, I really think it's important that we protect workers, that we do not assume that all freelance workers are choosing to be freelance workers in the way that, like, yeah, I am choosing to make a freelance life. I'm choosing to, like, pay for benefits on my own. I'm making that choice. But if I'm in a job in which that is the only option in order to do that job, that's not really a choice. And so for Uber drivers, it's not really a choice. That's the only way you can do that job. And so for people to have some clarity about, like, how much rights they can have as a worker, and that their job as freelance does not preclude them from protections.
You know, I'm concerned about that as well, because we fought that battle with Microsoft several years ago, where the contractors, you know, that, hey, if you're controlling them, if you're telling them when they work, where they work, what they're working on, you're their boss. And Microsoft lost that suit, which was good because they were bringing in, you know, contractors and just, I mean, saving money, not paying benefits and things like that. But it really wasn't good for, like, the economy, because people, you know, didn't have enough money and blah, blah, blah. I know, yeah, it's hard to think somebody working at Microsoft not making enough money, but that was essentially what it was, because they had to pay all the benefits and everything like that. So they had no real support.
Yeah, and that's to me the big thing. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I see this a lot. You know, you fight it, and 10 years later you fight it again.
Yes.
And then, I mean, they just keep clawing it back. You know, they both, all right, you know, the minimum wage is $15, you know, and that's it. No, we're gonna graduate. You put it in, you know, and then it goes up $2. Postpone the next raise for another 3 years, you know, and just keep delaying. So it's a constant fight for people.
We're constantly, like, in this loop of, like, trying to advocate for workers, like, constantly. And my hope is that we're having this kind of reckoning in our society, both imposed, like, we did not expect, were sent home to our rooms to think about our sad choices. That's what I always say about COVID. Like, that's all that's happening right now. But I'm hoping that we're having this reckoning about, like, who are we as employers? Who are we as employees? And, like, what is our role in relationship to each other? And, like, is this the time to renegotiate that? And my hope is that following this event, we will see some really radical shifts in workers' rights.
Well said. Well said. Any other questions for Katie? Awesome.
Hi, Katie. This is Anca. Besides diversity and inclusion, what other hot topics do you see rising at the moment in HR? I mean,
I think. Thank you for that, because I think that there are two things that I am seeing a lot of conversation around. One is career paths. Like, I think the model of just advocating for yourself in a career is broken, because people do not have always the access to know what options they have. And so having clarity in career paths and, like, what this looks like, and helping organizations paint that picture, which means, like, how do we do promotions? How do we give performance feedback? How do we mentor? I think that's a really big and juicy emergent thing. I also think, as always, compensation. I think as we're starting to create a more equitable workforce, how we pay people, what they are paid, how we compare salaries is going to be more and more important and urgent. And so to me, like, having really great compensation systems is going to be, like, the definition and the differentiator between organizations.
Thank you.
All All right, everyone, we're closing in on 4:50 p.m. here on the East Coast. Any last questions? I did put Katie's website, Future Workout Design, in the chat. Right, Katie?
Yep,
Um,
that's us.
How else can people contact you? I put your LinkedIn up there as well. Anything else you
Yeah,
want?
LinkedIn is great. And you can find me, like I tend to post quite a bit on LinkedIn, so feel free to comment or hop on or share an article with me. I love it.
Nice. Well, thank you for your time today, Katie. It's great to get to know you a bit and learning more about
Thank
you.
you. This is fun.
Yeah, awesome.
Appreciate
So
it.
the replay will be out probably tomorrow, and then I'll put it up on HR Lancers socials and the website as well. And yeah, I appreciate you joining us again. It was a great conversation, I thought.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Katie.
Awesome. Mark, thanks for joining us. Tanya, Lisa, Anca, Monique, Megan, Maureen, and Dr. Joy. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Take care.
Bye.